everyone, I'm Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about all the books that I read in June and also talk about the books that I want to read in July. I decided to combine these two videos because I got a little over ambitious with my June TBR and didn't quite finish everything. I had, I think, 7 books on my June TBR and I only actually finished 4, but I did get most of the way through another one. So I'm going to go ahead and combine these because a lot of the books on my June TBR ended up getting over and moved over onto my July TBR. So I've already talked about them a little bit, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them today. So I decided to go ahead and combine these two videos. But first, we'll start with the books that I did finish in June. I'm going to talk about these in the order that I rated them from lowest to highest. And so the one that we will get started with is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This book tells the story of a little coffee shop in Tokyo where you can travel back in time. And there are lots of rules surrounding the time travel element of this book. So first of all, there is only one seat in the coffee shop where you can travel back in time. So you have to sit in that one seat. You can only travel back. I'm trying to remember all the rules. You can only travel back to people that have also been in the coffee shop. You cannot get out of the chair while you are in the past. And also you can only stay for as long as a cup of coffee stays warm. So these people that are traveling back in time, they choose when they want to go. They sit in the chair. A cup of coffee is poured, and then they travel back, and they have to drink the whole cup of coffee before it gets cold in order to get back to the future. And the final rule is that it doesn't matter how hard you try, nothing in the present will be changed from your going back to the past. So you having a conversation with another person who you want to go back and talk to in the past, nothing in the present is going to change. So this book poses the question of, what would you say if you could go back in time, even if you knew that nothing would change? And so I thought that that was a really interesting concept. It just was not as engaging as I hoped that it would be. So this book is very short. There are 4 chapters in it that are basically 4 separate stories of these different people who interact with the time travel aspect of the cafe. The stories themselves were fine. The book just as a whole is written very dryly. I saw someone online describe it as feeling very much like they were reading like a stage play almost. And I totally agree. That's very, very much how it felt. And so it was good. It just was not very engaging. And for so short a book, it took me a lot longer to get through than I would have thought, because I had a hard time staying motivated and wanting to continue reading. But I did finish it. I'm glad I did. There are other books in the series, I'm assuming, that follow more characters and more stories of people interacting with this time travel in this cafe. I don't know if I will pick them up and read them because this was good. It just was not as wonderful as I wanted it to be and as I thought it would be. So I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, it was good. It just was not my favorite. The next book I want to talk about, I will put up on the screen somewhere because I don't have the copy of it with me. The rest of the books that I read this month, I actually don't have the physical copies with me because I loved them so much. I have already lent them out to other people. So I don't have the physical copies with me, but I'll put it up on the screen. The next one that I want to talk about was This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. This was a Persian-inspired fantasy. It was very much kind of a Cinderella retelling, which I did not know going into it, but I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And I absolutely loved this one. This one was wonderful. I thought it was quite well written. Sometimes I have a hard time with some writing in young adult fantasy. But this one was very well written. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Everything about it, I really, really loved. Sorry if you see me looking over here. I have notes on my computer, so I might be glancing over here to remember what I want to say. But I really, really liked it. It was very good. My favorite thing about it was the two main characters and the chemistry and the just amazing banter between them and stuff. The dialogue was very witty, very, very fun to read, and so I absolutely loved it. And so we follow our two main characters, Aliza, who is a djinn, and then Kamran, who is the human prince of this world. And in this world, djinn and humans at this point live alongside of each other, but there's a lot of distrust between them. For a long time, the humans were hunting down the djinn, and at this point, they're living alongside each other, but the djinn are still very much distrusted, discriminated against, and things like that. And so our main character, Aliza, she is a djinn, and she spends a lot of the time trying to hide who she is. She works very low profile as a maid in like this noble house. She keeps a face covering on because she has some physical features that mark her as a djinn. And so she tries to keep a really low profile to keep people from knowing who she is. But through a series of events, I don't want to spoil anything, but through a series of events, she comes in contact with Kamran, who is the prince. And I loved just how instantaneous for me the chemistry between them was. From the very first scene that they had together, you could just feel it. Like, it was amazing. And so I really, really loved it. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was very good. The only reason I did not give it 5 stars was because I thought the pacing was a little bit slow at the beginning of the book. The book, kind of the central event in the book is a ball that happens. And so there's a whole lot building up to that, but then that doesn't happen till the very end of the book. So the beginning of the book, while the world building was very good, it felt a little bit slow. So that's why I gave it 4.5 instead of 5 stars, but it was still excellent, amazing, highly recommend. The end of this book was absolutely explosive. There was so much that happened at the end of this book, and I finished it and I left just going, oh my goodness, what just happened? It was amazing. It was incredible. So highly recommend. The next book I want to talk about was the audiobook that I listened to this month, which was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is the second book in the Darker Shades of Magic. I think the series is called The Shades of Magic. So the Shades of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. And it was great. I loved it. So I read the first book at least 6 months ago. I think it was the end of last year that I read the first book. And I really liked it. And then for some reason, never got around to continuing the series until this month in June. And so I'm so glad I read it. First of all, the audiobook was amazing. We have dual POVs from our two main characters. We have a different narrator for each of them. Both narrators are amazing, are wonderful. And so I thoroughly enjoyed the audio experience for this book. The premise for this world is that there are different Londons, and they vary by the amount of magic that each of them has and the effect that they have. So there are different Londons that are kind of, different dimensions. And the main story centers in Red London. Red London is full of magic. People have different magical abilities. It's very much centered around elemental magic. And so people can use one or more elements, and magic is very central to this world. It's very present. It's very normal. It's very much a part of this world. And that is where our main character, Kel, is from. Kel is from Red London. He is a magician. He is an Antari, which means that he is one of the most powerful magicians in this world because he can use any element. Most people can only use one or maybe two. He can use all of them, and so he is very powerful. And he is from Red London. There's also Gray London, which seems to be very much of a parallel to like the real world. Gray London, people have fairly regular lives, but there really isn't any magic. Some people are aware of the existence of magic, that there are places that have it, but it is not present in this world. But people do still tend to live fairly normal lives in Grey London. There's White London, which is focused on a lot more in the first book than it is in this second book. But in White London, it's kind of hard to describe, but the people are basically starving for magic and for anything that kind of brings back the life and the vitality of this world. It's called White London because like life has been so drained from this world that there's almost no color. Everything is white and gray, very colorless and very lifeless, and the people there are just starving for magic, for any sort of life. And then there's also Black London. Black London is almost a place of myth. It is known that at some point in the past, magic consumed Black London and completely took over everything that was there. Nobody is left. There's just nothingness in Black London. And it's kind of seen as more of a myth and a warning of what can happen when magic gets out of balance. And so, like I said, Kel, our main character, is from Red London. And then we also have Lila, who in the first book originates from Grey London. And in the first book, her and Kel come together and a bunch of stuff happens. I don't want to give away the whole story. But basically in the first book, there was a threat that came over, specifically Red London, threatened to almost destroy everything that was there. There was a lot that happened. I don't remember a lot of the details because it's been so long since I read it. But that was kind of the central focus of the first book. The second book, A Gathering of Shadows, takes place 4 months after the first one. Kel and Lila have kind of gone their own separate ways. They're both in Red London now, but they have kind of gone their separate ways. And so the beginning of the book just kind of takes some time to show where each of these characters are at. What are they doing? How has life changed in these past 4 months? What's going on? And then the story centers around a magic competition. And so this book was amazing. I loved it. Very good. But I had the same problem that I had in This Woven Kingdom, where the beginning of the book felt very slow, and it felt a while till we get to it, because this magic competition is almost like the only big plot point in this book, and it doesn't even happen until the last third of the book is when it really talks about and discusses this magic competition. And so it just took a while to get there. So I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, again, just because the pacing of the beginning of this book was a little bit slow, but it was still incredible. Loved it. Very, very good. I'm very excited to read the next one to wrap up the trilogy. The next book I finished this month, and was actually the only one to receive 5 stars, was actually a nonfiction book, which really surprised me. This was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This book was incredible. So this was an essay collection by John Green, and the Anthropocene is a term that refers to the human era on Earth. So the era on Earth that we currently live in right now, where humans are the dominant force, where humans have a lot of impact on the world, on the environment. And so the Anthropocene Reviewed is John Green discussing different topics related to humanity, related to human culture, and it's short essays. Most of them were only between maybe 5 to 8 pages. They were pretty short. And so he has a topic that he discusses for 5 to 8 pages, and then at the end rates that topic out of 5 stars. And the whole book is just going through these topics. Some of them are very lighthearted, some of them are very, very deep and thought-provoking. And I mean, it's John Green, so even if you think something is going to be lighthearted, he finds a way to make it much more thought-provoking than you would think it would be. But it was incredible. I cannot believe how much I enjoyed this one. I haven't loved John Green's fiction that I have read. It's fine. It's just not what I'm drawn to. But when I saw this essay collection, I just randomly picked it up at a used bookstore. I thought, oh, this might be interesting. And I loved it. I loved it so much. His point of view and just the way he dives deeper into things, the way that he makes you think about things was wonderful. 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing. Cannot recommend enough. So those are the only books that I did manage to finish this month. But there were 3 others on my June TBR that I did not get to, and so I'm just moving them over to books that I want to read in July. So one of those is one that I have gotten most of the way through. I just need to finish it, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I'm not going to go into detail about this and the next 2 books in this series because I have already talked about them a little bit, but it's very good. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, so I just need to finish it. Another book that I didn't get to this month, but I'm still very much looking forward to, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm still very excited to read this one. I love Emily Henry. I'm excited for her new book. This one just didn't quite make it to what I got around to this month. Again, I'm not going to talk about this in detail. I'll probably do some vlogs where I discuss this, and I also talked about the synopsis for this book in my June TBR. So if you're interested, you can go check that out. But I don't want to spend too much time reiterating things that I've already said. And the final book from my June TBR that I still need to get to is After the King, Stories in Honor of J.R.R. Tolkien. This is short stories that are written by various fantasy authors in the style of Tolkien. This was my read it or unhaul it for June. And I'm not going to just unhaul this yet because I haven't even gotten around to reading it. So these are high on my priority list for July. I want to get to this, and we'll just see how much I like it. Hopefully I've learned my lesson from being a little bit overambitious for my June TBR, but the only other books that I am putting on my list to read in July are the next book in the series is that I was reading in June. So I have the second book that comes after This Woven Kingdom, These Infinite Threads by Tahereh Mafi. I'm excited to see how the series continues. I got this one from the library, so this will probably be one of the first ones I read this month because I have to return it. But I'm very excited to jump in and see what happens next, especially after how explosive the end of the first one was. And then the other book that I want to do is the third book in the Shades of Magic series, A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. And I am excited to finish out the series. This is the biggest book out of the whole series, but I'm very excited to get to this. I will likely listen to this one on audio as well because I really, really liked the audiobook experience from the last one that I read. But I'm very excited to get to this to wrap up the trilogy. I think that V.E. Schwab just released like another book in this world. I think it's a companion series, but I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure that this one will wrap up this trilogy, so I am excited to get to it. All right, that's all the books that I read in June and all of the ones that I hope to get to in July. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!